the Select Board meeting of
Recording in progress.
Good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting of July 16th, 2024. We'll start as always with the Pledge of Allegiance led by John.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is open forum. Does anybody have anything for open forum tonight? If not, I know when we last met 3 weeks ago, I mentioned the unfortunate passing of Zayon, and the town's generosity. We actually raised more money than was needed for his expenses, and so the family asked for something to be done in his honor. If you saw the WestfordCAT article, we've used some of that money for the police department and the town social worker to buy air tags that can be given to individuals with autism, Alzheimer's, or any other medical condition that might cause them to wander, so they can be tracked more easily by the police if necessary. So thanks to the town for making that happen. One glimmer of light in an otherwise sad story. But also, if you do have loved ones who would benefit from this, talk to the Westford PD or call the senior center and talk to the social worker, and they can get you set up with air tags. Anything else? Okay, moving along to the consent agenda. First, we have a special license for live band. Applicant is Sandra Hobby. Date is July 19th from 6:30 to 8:30 at Good Picking Farm on 5 Gould Road. Is there a motion to accept subject to public safety comments?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And there's a reason for doing this thing separately. So next is a banner request, several of them, as a matter of fact. September special election on September 3rd, 2024. Applicant is the town manager's office. August 27th through September 6th are the posting dates in front of First Parish Church. Second is a Live for Live Foundation fundraiser. September 14th, 2024. Applicant is Jody Marchand. It will be held or be posted September 9th through the 14th.
18th.
Sorry, 18th. Wrong. Yeah, wrong line. Also in front of First Parish Church. Next is a special town meeting posting for October 21st, 2024. The banner will be up from October 15th to the 22nd in front of First Parish Church. And finally, the presidential election, November 5th, 2024, applicant town manager's office from October 29th to November 8th, also in front of First Parish Church. Is a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is a second? All in favor?
Aye.
So a motorcycle ride is also requested by Timothy Landry. It'll be October 25th. It's the Massachusetts Elks Motorcycle Run. It'll run through town. The reason why I took it out separately was because the public safety comments involved the applicant requested putting door hangers on doors along the route, and the PD suggested other means of communicating, like brochures. So I was curious, Kristen, is that if we get the direction to the police, they can take care of that?
So I'll let Jeff Morissette handle that, as he reviewed that last week.
Sure. So we did share police department's comments with the applicant. They were understanding, and they just wanted it to be a positive experience, so they respected the police department's wishes, and they will not be using the door hangers. They are going to resort to other means, such as social media and other places. So they won't be doing the door hangers.
Thanks. So with that in mind, is there a motion to approve subject to public safety comments?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then finally, we have a road bike race. The event is 2024 Ride to Defeat ALS. Applicant is Steve Lopez. The date will be September 28th. It'll also go through various roads in town. Is there a motion to approve?
So
Subject
moved.
to pay, actually, public safety said no issue with this one because it's dispersed. So motion to approve, yes. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. the 7:10 public hearing with National Grid's been waived, so I think we need to close that public hearing because it's basically been requested as being redundant. So is a motion to close the public hearing of the National Grid job 309-65308 on 74 through 80 Nutting Road.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And since we have a time certain for the next request, we thought we would,
I'd just, also just ask, if you would accept the petition to withdraw, or if you feel that that was done in closing the public hearing, I'll let that be your discretion.
I think it was done in closing the
Yeah.
public.
Sure.
I think it's kind of
There's nothing to
implied.
vote
so, thinking about a lot of, actually, I did not mention under open forum, but July 4th weekend, we had trees down at the East Boston camps. We had power out. Turns out it was on town land, not National Grid land. So we have multiple town departments working that weekend. Highway, facilities. I'm probably forgetting others. I think Jeff was pulled into that. So thanks to all of those. But I wanted to kind of tonight get some of the POs and contracts done ahead of time so they can get back to their life before later than usual. So with that in mind, I think we'll go to the town manager's report to look at the grants, POs, and contracts.
Great, thank you. So the first one is a grant to accept from the Massachusetts Council on Aging for the provision of transportation services proposal in the amount of $14,800 as requested by the Council on Aging.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
The next is a set of purchase orders. One is for the Stony Brook School wastewater treatment facility painting project in the amount of $28,000 as requested by the Water Department. And the second is for the Northwest Public Health Coalition, which is Westford, Acton, Dracut, and Lowell for the annual inspectional software in the amount of $31,500.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, $31,050. I apologize for that. The next is a set of contracts. The first is for MJ Cataldo for the construction of the Namnasset Playground project in the amount of $534,500 as requested by the Facilities Department. The next is Atlantic Pavement Markings for the painting of road lines in the amount of $49,950 as requested by the Public Works Department. The next is for M.E. O'Brien and Sons, Inc. for the design and installation of playground shade structures at town beaches in the amount of $175,567.28 as requested by the Public Works Department. Next is Weston and Sampson for our annual landfill monitoring in the amount of $17,700 for fiscal year '25. Turning the page, BME Strategies for the Regional Shared Services Grant Manager. They were our previous Regional Shared Services Grant Manager in the amount of $99,787 for 3 years. BME Strategies for the Regional Shared Services Quality Improvement Coordinator in the amount of $99,787 for 3 years as requested by the Health Department. Ray is on the line. I'm going to ask her to clarify in a second if those amounts are
Yeah, that was my
correct.
question. That was my question.
Yeah.
Okay,
So let's promote Ray. Mike, do you want to do that? Promote Ray? So if you go to. So while Ray's being promoted, I'm just going to read off the next two and then we'll go back to that if the board doesn't mind. The next is the water treatment chemicals for fiscal year 2025 for Univar Company for both potassium hydroxide and potassium permanganate, Holland Company for polyaluminum chloride, Roberts Chemicals for sodium chloride, Univar Company for sodium fluoride, as the amounts are listed on your agenda. And then the final one is the Upper Merrimack Valley Reserve Corps for Public Health Emergency Preparedness Contract with Nancy Burns in the amount of $48,716 as requested by the Health Department. So Ray, are you available to hear us?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Yes, just to clarify that those salaries of $99,787 are per year for the next 3 years till 2027. And those are paid out of the grant.
So they are the same for the grant manager and the shared service quality improvement coordinator, same salary amounts?
Yes, and those are the same positions in the last cycle, grant cycle.
So that's the price each, not the price combined, right? So the total is 198,000 and change?
Yes, per year.
John?
I have a question on the, not on this one, but on the unit prices.
Okay. Well, that's first, so are we satisfied with Ray's issue? Okay. So yes, okay, great. So thanks, Ray. Okay, John, go
I
ahead.
want to mention the not to exceed amount of that contract for that unit price contract. What's the not to exceed amount on that contract?
Which
for
one are you, on the water treatment?
hydroxide, the permanganate, that's for the water treatment chemicals?
Is there a not to exceed amount on that? So we're promoting Mark Warren right now.
Just to get an idea of what the total contract cost might be.
Mark, can you hear us?
Sorry, Kristen, are you looking for me?
Yes, please. There's a question from John Cunningham about the water treatment chemicals. Is there a not to exceed on those chemicals for fiscal '25?
No, these are just the this year's consortium bid pricing for the chemicals that we need. These aren't not to exceed. These are just literally the unit prices.
Is there a not, okay.
And this is from our. We participate in a chemical consortium every year, so we bid along with 50 or so other municipalities and water supplies, etc. So we get really good pricing.
Somewhere along the line, I think I saw a $350,000 figure. I mean, that's not an open-end contract. I thought you'd have a not to exceed amount. That's okay.
I mean, what's budgeted last year, do you know, or remember? Well, I guess, what's in the budget for FY '25, I guess is the question.
Mark, can you hear us?
Sorry, I am having a hard time hearing. I apologize.
Do you know what the budget for chemicals is for fiscal year '25?
Yes, the budget I believe is $350,000.
I guess that's a not to exceed number.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Tom?
Okay.
I don't want to prolong this too much, but I don't recall, do we normally vote on the rate? It seems like a strange thing for us to approve. It seems like we would normally approve a budget number, but for no other department do we approve a purchase rate amount.
So
It's a contract, right?
It's the rate of the contract.
It's the
So
rate
it's
of the
like it's
contract.
like the gas contract. So you'd approve the gallon amount, the
Okay.
dollar amount per gallon.
Okay, great.
There's this one thing I mentioned before I took the vote. So we did have an email from a town resident asking the very fair question of, in a tight budget year, why we're spending $500,000 on a playground and another $5,000 on structures. And Kristen responded, and I will paraphrase her response. So the playground structures are, that's the third item there, was approved at town meeting in actually 2023. So we've just, without getting around to buying it and contracting it, but it's been approved for over a year. And the actual playground itself was approved at town meeting in April of this year as being paid for with a $100,000 state grant and a remainder with CPA funds. So it will not affect the town's budget because we can't use CPA funds to fund operational expenses. So a good question, but that's the answer. It's not really affecting the town's capital budget or operational budget. So with that in mind, is there a motion to approve all of the contracts outlined by Kristen?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we're actually right at 7:15, so I think we should,
I just had, can we do the proclamation?
okay,
Or-
sure.
So the last thing under the town manager's update is a request to approve the proclamation for the India Association of Greater Boston. I don't know if you'd like me to read the entire proclamation for respective time, but we have been asked to put this together related to August for India Day.
Yeah, I think this is the third or fourth time we've done it, so
we've
it's,
done
yeah.
this like 3 years.
So the wording has been approved before.
That's the same?
Yep.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, and we had that for your signature at the end of the meeting.
You have something, John, or you all?
Well, that's okay. I just, we're signing a thing that says that we can't match the beauty and the cultural heritage. Okay, go ahead.
It's a proclamation.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, on to our public hearing, which we continued from 3 weeks ago with National Grid, job number 307-53833, Wendell Place on Nutting Road. National Grid desires to construct a line of underground electric conduits, including necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures under and across the public way or ways hereinafter named, Wendell Place, and Lady Constance Way. And they will also be installing 2 4-foot concrete encased conduits for primary cable at pole 20 to support that residential development. Hopefully we have National Grid's engineer on the phone this time.
Yeah, so Sam Eng is on the line as a panelist. Sam, can you hear us? Sam, can you hear us? So he's showing up as a panelist. He's saying, I can hear you. Okay, we cannot hear you, Sam. I don't know if you want to try to log off and then come back on. He's going to call in. I don't know if you want to move to old business C and D while he's calling in.
All right, let's just do the minutes for approval. So item 11, so minutes for approval and release, May 28th, 2024, June 11th, 2024, and June 25th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then executive minutes to approve but not release, November 29th, 2022. Is that really correct?
It is correct. We were doing an audit on our executive session minutes.
And May 28th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve and not release?
So moved.
All in favor?
I abstain from the 2022 minutes.
Why?
No idea what you guys talked about. But I approve the other ones.
Okay.
So Sam, we see you back on. I just hear a bunch of clicking in the background.
Yeah, Sam, if you want to change your audio input or audio settings, might help. Microphone settings.
Do you want to open the public hearing while we're waiting, or
Right.
do that another time?
Well, it's already open.
You opened it. Okay.
No, this is a new public.
This is a new
hearing.
one.
This
Okay.
is not a continued, this is a new public hearing. So I'll move to open the public hearing and waive reading of the public hearing notice.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So I thought we opened them both last time, but you're right, we.
We only
did
had
not-
one at that
Yeah,
time.
we had one.
Hi, this is Sam from National Grid.
Ah, here we are.
Hey, Sam.
Okay, how you doing? Sorry for I don't know, I guess my microphone wasn't working.
That's okay. So, welcome. So it gives, I guess, give us,
Thank
we read the boilerplate, but I guess, in your own words, briefly describe what you're going to be doing on Dunning Road.
Yes, so an existing pole 20, kind of right in front of 80 Nutting Road there, we'd like to, well, the contractor is going to do all the installation, but we'd like to request that we install 2 4-inch conduit going across the street into the private property in Wendell Way, or Wendell Place.
Okay. I just out of sheer enjoyment, I took a look at the drawing, which had 80 Nutting Road, 78 Nutting Road, 74 Nutting Road, somehow my house just disappeared from the map at 76. So hopefully I actually still have a house there, but whatever you've got for a GIS system is wrong. Hopefully it's not the town's. But I know we got one person, I think, in the audience we did have. They left, okay, so never mind. Any questions from the board?
So I assume you're gonna have to close the road when you do this?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to make sure that residents along Nutting Road are aware of when the road is gonna be closed and that you coordinate with our public safety and our police department?
Okay, we'll probably contact the police department and get some traffic management ready for that.
Okay, yeah, you should, and like I said, also make sure that notification goes out to all of the residents along Nutting Road. It's a pretty well-traveled road.
When is this going to be done, do you think? Before school year, I hope?
It should go to scheduling after this. I don't know when, but I can email Pam McNiff, who I've been in communication with, on the scheduling dates for that.
Because that's a major parent drop-off and bus travel route to our middle school, so ideally you get done before buses are flowing.
So that would be before the end of August.
Okay, I'll speak to my trench inspector and try to get that part in the public way completed first. And again, I'll just communicate that with Pam.
Okay, thanks. I've been working the road now for a couple of weeks. The police are very well acquainted with the details, so yes, get them, make them aware of when you need to be there, but they've got the routine down pretty good. So with that in mind, are there any comments that we're seeing online? Anybody?
I don't see any hands raised online, and there's no one in the room at this point in time.
Okay, so is there a motion to
Close the public,
actually approve because we close the public
Close and
hearing.
then approve.
close it and then vote. So I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
And now I'll move to approve National Grid's job number 307-53833 in connection with Wendell Place.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, so there you go, Sam, thanks for joining us on a summer night, and ideally you can get this thing done before the school year. We appreciate that.
Okay, I'll speak to the trench inspector. Maybe we can get that portion of it installed first, so we can open up the road back for the public.
Great, thanks. Have a good night.
Okay. Thank you.
Can someone follow up and make sure that that happens?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
The other thing is, they got the cones already there, so if they did it relatively soon, they could just leave fixtures in place, but. Okay, move on to the 7:30, so the 7:20 item has been pulled at the applicant's request, so we move on to, not pulled, postponed till July 30th at the applicant's request. So we move on to the 7:30 item, which is the update discussion of the proposed firearms bylaw. So just to be clear, we're not taking a position tonight. We'll do that closer to a special town meeting. This is more a case that we discussed this in open meeting, I think, a month or two ago. So I know that it's been, out in the community. I thought it was appropriate for us to at least say where it stands. Certainly, if you watch the planning board, you would know the answer, but I think we have better ratings than they do. So we make it more. It's a joke.
What if I'm the cause? I could be dragging your ratings
Don't
down.
call,
You say there's nobody here tonight, so,
don't calls from Mike.
Commonality.
But I do want to make sure we get this, be as open as we can with the public. So,
Sure.
So if you want to fill us in, Jeff.
Absolutely. So to try to give a brief update, so this zoning proposal, it would try to define and regulate firearm businesses separately from other uses. It would limit new firearm businesses to the commercial highway and industrial highway zoning districts. It would require a special permit from the planning board. There would be no limit on the number of special permits that the planning board could issue for firearm businesses. It would provide for a 500-foot separation distance between firearm businesses and it would provide a 1,000-foot buffer to schools from firearm businesses. And in this version of the bylaw, firing ranges are not considered part of the definition of firearm businesses. So it's a really, as compared to the prior iteration, it's a much simpler, shorter version. The planning board did open their public hearing on this matter on April 1st. They continued it twice to May 6th and May 20th, in which time they then closed the hearing on June 3rd. And then on June 17th, they finalized their written report and recommendation, which we included in your packet for reference. And that's the very short version. There were a number of recurring questions that popped up throughout the planning board public hearing process. One of the questions is pretty much, is a special permit required? Why does it have to be a special permit? Why can't it be a site plan review? And the answer is, in order to provide any kind of buffer between firearm businesses or to the schools, or to directly involve the police department with the planning board public hearing process, you need a special permit. So it cannot be done without the special permit process. Another question that came up is, could the police chief be the special permit granting authority? And the answer is no, that is not allowed under Mass General Law. So those were some of the very the common questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you folks might have tonight.
And just before we open it to questions, I just want to be clear with the board and members of the public is that it is our goal to have this zoning bylaw amendment on the special town meeting warrant for October 21st. We can certainly talk about order and all of that, but Jeff's certainly here to talk about the details of the article. But we have been planning to have that on the special town meeting warrant if the board so approves putting that on.
I'm, in connection with the buffers, I know you said 1,000-foot buffer for schools. Was any consideration given for daycare centers?
It was discussed, and the planning board decided they wanted to go forward with the sort of bare bones approach that satisfied the police department's concerns, so they intentionally chose to not include such buffers this time around. So there were other buffers that was in the prior version that was eliminated this time around.
I get it. I guess I have a hard time differentiating between schools where children gather and daycare centers where children are gathered. That's...
Now, last time we, or you or JS created a map of where we would have stores allowed. My guess is that map is now much broader.
Yes,
do you have a base map? Is there a need for one, or?
So we do have a map in your packet.
I can bring it up.
It shows the location of the commercial highway, industrial highway zoning districts. It also shows the 1,000-foot buffer to the one school, Neshoba Valley Technical High School, that comes into play with the current district. So if you could scroll
Mike, do you
down.
mind shutting these really bright lights off? I think it's the middle switch.
You can see the Neshoba Valley Technical High School is the one school currently that would impact the commercial highway, industrial highway zoning districts. So anywhere that's green is a possible location for firearms in terms of zoning.
I do know that there are a couple of daycare centers within that.
There are a
and-
number of them.
Yes, a number of them, and so I remain concerned that we don't have a buffer with respect to daycare centers.
Now, would that be, could be amended on town meeting floor, correct? If so,
It could potentially be amended on town meeting floor. That could raise some interesting legal questions. So first and foremost would be, if there is such an amendment, would the planning board give a favorable recommendation to that? And that could raise, if they don't, that could raise the question of, even if town meeting moves forward on such an amendment, that could call into question whether or not ultimately that could be approved by the Attorney General's office, because we're sooner than the 2 years. Some could make an argument that it's a substantially, even with that amendment, that it's a substantially different proposal than what was last before town meeting, and that the 2-year window may not apply, and others could assert that without the planning board favorable recommendation on the version approved by town meeting, if one is approved, that could bring all that into jeopardy.
Tom?
Yeah, so I just sort of tracking in the community, people who are following this, that's just something we should be ready for. So it sounds like you've already thought through, but I would think there's a reasonable chance that someone would make such an amendment.
Yep, that's on our mind of one of many possibilities of, we wonder, will we have a quorum of the board available, the planning board, to even, you know, make a favorable recommendation or not? We wonder, we will be asking for special counsel there for that meeting,
Right.
of course. But we don't know where the line is, and our council can have their own opinion, but that is ultimately not the opinion that will matter. So we may not know. The safest thing would be to try to get something on the books if it's important enough, but obviously town meeting can do what town meeting will do. And we just don't have the answers to what ultimately would happen if amendments are made without benefit of planning board recommendation.
Any other comments from the board? Is there anybody online raising their hand?
I guess maybe just one other thing. So we're
This time.
because we've seen this a number of times, we're not spending a lot of time on this tonight. If people, Jeff, if someone from the public was relatively new to this and wanted to kind of get updated on the history and what's going on, is there a place we would direct them to?
So if you folks were to open the warrant tonight, we could, we already have the planning board's written report and recommendation. We could put those materials on the town meeting section of the website early and be available there, or someone is always welcome to reach out to the planning department. We're happy to have conversation with them or share the information with them.
And your planning board meetings were all taped by WCAT, so they could go to the WCAT YouTube channel and watch those videos as well.
Absolutely.
Do you have a
So-
dedicated webpage off the planning board website for the firearms bylaw yet?
I don't believe we do at this time.
Okay.
Okay, so if someone had 10 minutes and they wanted to understand it better, the best thing is for them to look at the special town meeting site. Probably if we open the warrant, you could have it up there in the next couple of weeks or so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, probably within the week.
Happy coincidence that isn't agenda very soon, so. John?
They can look at our packet. It's in our packet.
Right, a lot of the information is already in
Yep.
tonight's
Tonight's
packet.
packet.
So.
So that would be a good source for them.
And it has, I think, the relevant planning board minutes as well, so you can get, if you only have 10 minutes, you can get an abbreviated version of
Right.
the conversations that happened.
I guess that's all we have without anybody online. But I just want to get it out there, get the discussion going, socialize it, and get any concerns up front early on. So thanks, Jeff, for the
Sure.
update. With that, looking at old new business, and Jeff's still here, because the item next is the discussion of the potential hybrid meeting policy for land use boards. Hopefully you all saw the packets where no one seems really eager to do this. So I'll let Jeff fill us in with more details than I just gave you.
Sure. So the board is obviously having ongoing conversations about potentially adopting a hybrid meeting policy, whether it's for land use boards or others. We already know that such a policy would absolutely be binding on appointed boards and committees, but not necessarily binding on elected boards and committees. But that does not mean that if a policy was in place, certainly boards could choose to voluntarily comply or not if they're elected. So as part of an update, we did, as you requested, we did gather input from Conservation Commission, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals. We'll say that the two elected boards were fairly, they were unanimous in their lack of support for hybrid meetings. The Planning Board, it was slightly,
Appointed boards. I
I'm
think you
sorry.
said elected.
my apologies.
That's okay. That's okay.
So Conservation Commission and Zoning Board were not in support of hybrid meetings. The Planning Board, it was 4 members not in support. There was one Planning Board member, though, that was open to having hybrid meetings, but after some of the legal or technical challenges had been addressed and that clear policies were in place for what happens when things might go wrong. So 1 was supportive and 4 were not at this time. So the short answer is, for the elected, appointed land use boards, they're not supportive, but they do understand that the select board has the authority to put that in place. In addition to that, we did reach out to town council. So we had a number of questions and concerns that we raised, significant number of questions. And we anticipate their initial response in less than 2 weeks from today. The other thing that we did, as we talked about at the last time I was here with this board, is we started to gather some of the information from the active boards and committees that are still meeting. So it appears there's approximately 33 active boards and committees that meet now. Just a quick rundown of those. Of the 33, about 13 of them meet in person only. About 6 are hybrid, and the remainder, about 14, are virtual only. So we do think there are some opportunities. There's some low-hanging fruit here if you're trying to think about transparency, making things more broadly available to folks. There are a number of boards and committees that meet virtually only, yet some of those meetings, those videos aren't readily available in some cases. When combing through some of the agendas, we also noticed some opportunities to improve consistency and some of the messaging for, persons who might need special accommodations. So we think there's a good opportunity to have a updated and unified message that's consistent from agenda to agenda. And that's just some of those things that we looked at. We think we're about a third of the way through gathering that research for you folks. We need a little more time to go through that. We're trying to look at things like, are the boards elected or appointed? What is the actual meeting type? And we're trying to get a sense of how many of them hold public hearings. So not many of the boards don't actually hold public hearings. Some boards and committees hold them routinely every meeting, and there's other committees that have them once in a while. And so we think once we get benefit of that input from town council, I think we'd be able to make, a more informed decision, or at least give you folks better information, if you decide to make policy, what are some of those implications, so. And there would be ways to try to balance, the benefit versus some of the risk, but we're not in a position to tell you how to do that right now until we get some of those answers from town council.
And I guess there is right now, we only have hybrid possibilities, either here or at Millennium, correct?
That is my understanding.
That is our
So
understanding.
I think about like pedestrian safety, we typically meet at room B because this room is oftentimes occupied. So we either have to create more space which are hybrid applicable or viable, or start losing meeting space, which we don't really want to do. So there's some cost moving to a hybrid across the board too, correct?
There would definitely be some changes. So that's one of the things we wanted to look at. One of the things we're looking at is who is staffing or managing that if it isn't fully in person. Like, who does that now? What are some options down the road? If we only have so many venues that currently have the equipment, is there the possibility for changing schedules, which obviously can be a little sensitive with some boards and committees? Like, some people, their schedules are their schedules, and the reason it works is that's the regular meeting night, and so it may not be feasible to ask boards to simply change their meeting time to get more meetings in the same room. We also know there's some times of the year that you folks and other boards are meeting much more frequently than normal. So there will be times where if we rely too heavily on any particular venue, there will be more conflicts when you get to your busy season or your budget season in particular. So some of those things to think about.
So do you have is there anything we need to give you tonight to help you make progress, or are you pretty well determined on the path you need to go on?
I think the first step is to really get the input from town council. I'm sure we'll have a few follow-up questions, but my biggest concern is relative to public hearings. So I don't know how many of those concerns that we can fully address, and there might be some that we can mitigate such that we only have reasonable risk, but until we have that information, I think that's the first crucial step, honestly.
Any other comments from Chris?
Can you remind me, so did we have boards that conducted public hearings during the time of COVID, and was there any risk or challenges or problems associated with them doing that?
I think there were definitely challenges, more so earlier on when it was kind of newer for everyone. There are some boards that technology is a little more challenging for, I'll say. and others it's much easier.
So these are technical challenges, not legal challenges.
Well, there were some issues. If there were interruptions, we had, some board members fall off, and could not reconnect. And they might have been in an area with poor phone service to begin with. So fortunately, it didn't fall below the necessary quorum for acting, on that particular agenda item. But we did have issues. But I would say, people today have gotten better about that. But there are some boards or members on boards that it's just not their preference, and they would prefer to just not. They would prefer to meet in person. I think for some folks, they feel that the in-person meeting is much more personable. They have better quality communication. Even tonight, there was only little minor hiccups, and they were quickly resolved, and that's a great outcome. But sometimes there could be a more significant or lengthy interruption. And so we care more about the public hearings and introducing flaws. Just because there's a flaw, though, it doesn't mean it's necessarily fatal. But we want to at least have those things lined up. I thought some of the Conservation Commission's comments were interesting, and I hope you had a chance to read through. They're all brief memos, but I thought a lot of their concerns really weren't about necessarily the technology. It's about the connections that they had with the public. And they felt that they had more honest and earnest conversations with people that were right there in the room, reading their reactions, being able to coax people who might not be so comfortable if they sense, some reaction. And, ultimately it's going to be a policy decision for you folks. You asked for input from those boards and committees. They provided it. It's probably not what you wanted to hear, but we wanted to get you that information.
I guess I would agree 100% that in-person is better. You can, write the body language, the personal touch.
Yep.
But there are people who've got kids at home,
Yeah,
where they're caring for another individual family. There are folks who just can't have that personal touch, and this is a way to get them involved in town affairs.
There are also people who just want to tune in because they're interested and
Yeah.
want to hear about it, not necessarily that they need to be in the room.
Tom?
I guess one thing I was interested in, and you may have mentioned it, Jeff, and I apologize if I missed it, was part of your research looking at towns that have made this conversion for the boards, like planning boards, where they've faced these challenges, they've gotten through it somehow, and on the far side, they can either say it was a disastrous transition, we've lost all contact with the public, or they could say, this is pretty interesting, it seems to have worked fine, we had concerns, but we got through it. I guess for me to feel like I want to put more leverage, I guess I'd like to hear if there are people that have conquered the challenges that have been identified as concerns here.
Yep. Understood. We're still working on gathering our data about the boards and town council, and we're also asking council, have they dealt with these issues with their other communities? Obviously, the horror stories that you may hear from other communities jump out more. They're usually the exception. It's, you don't hear about the smooth meetings, right? It doesn't make the news. You hear about, Zoom bombing and things going tragically wrong, and they stand out, but I bet it doesn't happen very frequently.
And very frequently anymore.
Anymore.
Given that so much of this has been advanced, we have good practice, we have tools to do this. So just a request, I'm gonna have an increasingly hard time feeling like we're on the right side of history here if other people have made this transition and say there are benefits on the far side. And so that's information that would be interesting to me. And I guess the other question is, there could be plenty of boards that maybe don't need true full hybrid access because there's not evidence of big issues of public interest where lots of people want to dig in and understand it. But there are pretty lo-fi ways you can have a hybrid meeting. Many organizations I'm part of have, a little camera setup that they'll add, or if it's a small group, they'll set up one computer at the far side of a room. Is there any kind of legal requirement that says we can only have a hybrid meeting in this room? Or is that just,
No, I think it's just
because of
It's just our practice.
it's the equipment, and if a board or committee does not have a staff person who brings a laptop, who can access the Zoom, we're trying to work out all of those logistical items. It's not to say it can't happen, it's just what are the resources necessary to do it.
okay. I can think of a dozen other committees I'm on where we're often or always hybrid, where we've got some kind of screen set up and some kind of mic set up, and it's $100 of stuff and 15 minutes of training. So I guess I don't accept the idea that we're room limited. We may be a little bit training limited, but, so that's more of a point than a
that's
request, I
solvable.
guess. Yeah, I mean, the world has solved that problem, right? So
Yeah.
we don't have special, if we don't have special requirements, then there's no reason we can't solve the problem too. So,
How many committees are we really talking about? Because if they're doing remote only, doesn't that satisfy the
that's easy,
requirement?
yeah.
So how many of them are remote only? That satisfies the requirement. We're not gonna force them to be in person, if that works.
I also
So how
still
many are
want
we
to.
really talking about?
I also still just want to remind the board, and this is not to be defensive at all, we are still working under the COVID law.
What
So
happens when that changes?
the remote meeting participation is still under the emergency order. We're still waiting to see if the Mass Municipal Empowerment Act passes at the legislature before July 31st. So we're hoping that this remote option continues. But if it doesn't, we may have to rethink our wheels. I just want to make sure that the board members are aware of that.
This July 31st?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Chris?
And along those lines, right, if it doesn't pass, and now we have, because it sounded like the lion's share of boards and committees are actually virtual, based off of the numbers you just relayed to us.
14.
So are we going to have some sort of space issues, and do we need to think about that?
Right, that's why we're doing this inventory of who meets when, at what point in time, what are those boards and committees. So I think it's important that I thank Jeff and his team for putting together this as a comprehensive package rather than just talking about the land use boards.
And I'll just add, when we met last night, the Park and Rec Commission, we sort of did a hybrid meeting. So we put up a TV, attached the laptop to the TV, so we have better multimedia capabilities. So even in that building, you're able to make it work. But it also came out that we can do it at the Highway Garage Conference. So, you know, that's another location that people can utilize.
I think they can do it at the water department as well.
So,
And
okay.
the fire station.
I've done it at the water
Oh,
department.
yeah, will Center Fire Station accommodate hybrid, I wonder?
Yeah, it should.
We've done a hybrid there before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the big media room?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
it's set up permanently that way or if we had to do a special setup, but we did have a hybrid meeting there at one point.
Okay, we cover this one well?
So I think as part of the analysis, we're gonna hear, you know, what are our capabilities? And if we're insufficient, let's say if we had to have everybody use hybrid, do we have enough capacity to sustain that? And if not, what's the delta? What would we need to do in terms of either retrofitting rooms or the cost associated with being able to support that? Yeah, I would like to hear that information as part of
Okay.
the analysis, if it's not too difficult.
Well, we're gonna gather all that we can. One of the sort of the hanging questions out there, though, is we're obviously trying to explore making things more accessible to people remotely, but is there thought to people who don't feel comfortable meeting remotely to making there be sort of an in-person option as well? Because that single thing could have a big impact on the demand for physical venue
Right,
space.
that's what I
So-
just mentioned.
Right, that's what,
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's what you were saying.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm also curious as to what would be the largest, it's not on our chart yet, but like what is the largest turnout you've had at a meeting of that particular board or committee, you know? Because that also could be significant. You know, you have a very intensive public hearing process, and you could be talking about dozens, right?
Oh, I seem to remember
Oh, way more than
a meeting several years ago where we were talking about, I believe, hundreds that were in the hall that night.
Would that be the asphalt plant or or last uncontrolled issue?
I was thinking about the asphalt plant.
Good times. So, but there's a lot of boards that probably only have a handful,
Right.
if any. And I think that would be good information to gather as well.
Yeah, I think I'm primarily concerned about boards like the planning board that occasionally have issues of great public interest where people who are disabled or taking care of kids can't participate.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about that access. I'm not so concerned about a very small board that has low attendance. Like, to do it just for its own sake, to make them do it right now, I guess I wouldn't personally prioritize that. But I feel like when there are issues of great public interest that come up, people should be able to participate. So.
I do want to point out that if someone does have a disability, then, you know, we already have to make accommodations for that.
So there is one public comment online if you're taking
Yep.
public comment. So this comes from Diane Wood. She said from a legal perspective, she believes Sudbury conducts hybrid planning board meetings. If it is not legal, how can this be? So I think this goes along with the research that Jeff is doing at this point in time.
Yeah, there's no guarantee Sudbury check with town council, they may have just done it, so. Okay, so I think we've covered that one, and you've got enough direction, Jeff, to make forward progress?
I believe I have adequate direction, yes.
So when do we, so are we gonna, I guess, wait for the July 31st decision? Because that, I think, will impact.
Well, we've also got legal questions that Jeff
Right.
has posed that will take another 2 weeks,
What
so.
what I'm coming to is, when do we want to circle back to this? What are we thinking, August timeframe?
August, because we've been together on the 30th, which is too soon.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, August, either the second, either the first or second meeting. Look at the agenda, see how busy it looks on any one night, and
Does that work for you in terms of all your workload and if you have enough time to get everything you need by then?
I hope to at least have town council issues resolved for August. I can't say that we'll have all of the other information complete. We are running up against our deadlines for a number of things for this October town meeting. That's going to take a lot of time in the next couple of weeks, but we can make some good progress.
And I think we can provide,
Even if it's
bi-weekly
just an
updates.
update
Exactly.
in August,
Yep.
just so we know where things are.
because there is some linkage between the interest in the firearms bylaw and the interest in hybrid meetings. There is a coincidence there, so I'd like at least have updates. If we don't have the final answer, at least we keep the public appraised of progress.
Okay.
And then speaking of progress, we'll move on from that one to the discussion of the board and committee assignment process. And I think I started out as what do we do with citizen activity forms to I think correctly, a more broader discussion of how do we appoint members to boards and committees in general. So since you've been very, very busy, Jeff, we'll let you continue with this one.
Yes, well, continuing with our trifecta of fun, I have a brief memo in your packet. It's really trying to call out some of what we believe the existing practice has been for appointing boards and committees. And then calling out maybe a couple of questions for you folks to think about so we can get some direction and feedback. We then think it would make sense to provide a couple of example policies from other communities, but we didn't want to necessarily bias you before you thought about these questions. So we can go through some of this. I want to say some of the challenges I think we faced in the overall process is if someone is good enough to put their name in the hat for a board or committee, on the one hand, it's very easy to do right now. You can go fill out a citizen activity form, you can click 5 boxes, and you can be considered for those boards and committees, right? I think one of the shortfalls with that, though, is it's great we're making it easy, but I have seen firsthand there have been folks who have applied for a board or committee and they haven't really understood what the committee is about or the charge. And come to find out they are very interested, but their schedule doesn't work with that board's meeting schedule. And so you involve multiple people and come to find out it's not even a meaningful possibility. I think it would be good before someone clicks the box that they have to some way acknowledge or understand the charge and be familiar with the meeting schedule and also, the form of the meeting, like if it's hybrid or virtual. To some people that could be a big difference in whether or not they can attend. They might be able to attend a lot in person a lot of the time, but if they have children sometimes, they might need to meet virtually once in a while. And some boards and committees are open to that and others are not as open to that. I also think people need to understand when they fill out a citizen activity form that will essentially become a public document. So if it's, you can share, black out some of the information, some of the phone numbers and such, but at the end of the day, that's going to go around to those boards and committees. It's going to make its way into packets. So they should just be alerted to that from the very beginning. So it's going to be a public document. I think in the past, nothing malicious about it. It's just people want to get input from the respective boards and committees. I think that can be good practice. You may not be intimately familiar with all the details. I mean, there's 33 active boards and committees at this time. I can't imagine that you're fully, expert on all matters and the current makeup of that board and committee. I think it is useful to have input from those boards and committees. But in the past, I think sometimes you may have only seen the recommended candidate. And I think it would be good practice for the appointing authority to at least have benefit of seeing all of the people who put their name into the hat, you know. Even though factor in the recommendation, you could prioritize different things than the particular committee. They may be focused more on their committee, and you may be thinking about some bigger picture issues or challenges you want to address. So that, looking at the CAF, I think is part of the beginning, and I think the appointing committee should definitely look at all of the candidates. Another question is, when someone submits the CAF, you get an immediate notification that says thank you for submitting, but you don't get a thank you that says for this board or this committee. And I do think it would be important to have ownership of that first point of contact be, you know, a town employee who's working, you know, day to day under, you know, the care of the town manager. Because sometimes the volunteers on boards and committees, they have lives, they're busy, they travel, they get ill, and some boards and committees don't necessarily meet as frequently as others. And you would hate to have, you know, a lengthy delay for them the applicant not knowing where they are in the process if they're in the queue. And so I think it would make sense to kind of, that ownership should be with an employee under the town manager's office and not relying on the individual board or committee volunteer members. But I do think it would be important to seek their input if the boards and committees are willing to provide that. Why shouldn't the appointing authority have benefit of that so you can make as informed a decision as possible? So those are just a couple of the things that we think you should think about respectfully.
One other thing that you mentioned, I don't know if it's in there or just talking to me, but right now you put a application in, there's no opening, so there's no opening, right? So, you know, how would, again, the idea of going to town staff, I says, this could be on file for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, so that if an opening does occur, notify the person that, you know, no opening was there when you asked, but there is one now, are you still interested?
Right, so we think we should call out sort of what is the active window, and we're looking for input from you folks. We just suggested with throwing 2 years out there. This has come up before when people have put their name in the hat for, say, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and at the time there were no vacancies. And then a year goes by or 9 months goes by, and they announce at open forum that someone is resigning their position or they're not going to seek reappointment. And so people hear that, they put their name in the hat, and you may have a couple of citizen activity forums. But how far back do you go to be fair to the people who already put their name in the hat before it became known about the vacancy? So we think it'd be good for everyone to know, you know, think of what time period makes sense, and whether you think it's 1 year, 2 years, whatever you think. And we need to have a way to track that, and I believe there is a way to organize it to say, for this board or committee, these are the people that have put their names in as of these dates.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying, is though that this is also going to require some dedicated staff member to monitor this. So whether it's, you know, it's initially, you know, thank you for your application, you know, acknowledging receipt, tracking it so that if there's a vacancy that comes up, you can notify people for whatever time period we decide, but you can notify people, this has been, there's a vacancy here, are you still interested, do you want it to still be considered? And then also I think there needs to be on the end side, is that once an appointment has been made, that the people who applied for that position who were not chosen get some sort of follow-up saying, you know, thank you, we appreciate your interest, we will keep your application on file for whatever amount of time there is, and, you know, should another vacancy come up, we will notify you of such. I just think that there has to be that kind of acknowledgement on the end side of that as well as at the beginning side. But I also, as I was thinking about this, is that there's going to need to be some staff person who is dedicated to this and who can, you know, keep track of things and monitor all of this. I have no idea how many citizen application forms we receive in a year, but I gotta believe it's a lot, okay? So,
And it ebbs and flows as well. So
yes.
for Finance Committee, for example, we got 12,
Right.
which was a large number. But every time the town manager newsletter goes out, we get a flurry right after
Florida,
that.
I'm
So,
sure. So, I mean, I'm just sort of thinking of the logistics and how we manage this. But I do think, you know, up until now, I mean, it's sort of been a kind of closed process where people really don't understand and don't know how we go about it. We have at times just sort of automatically renewed people's appointments without advertising the fact that the position is open again, that their appointment may be expiring. And I think, you know, we need to give people the opportunity if they want to apply for it, so.
Well, in fact, so I have 3 points. One was, last time I was chair of this committee, or this board, when we did our appointments, I said I wanted every committee chair to affirmatively ascertain that's not up for reappointment, actually it was attending. Because it's easy to say, check, yes, I want to continue, but if you're not making half the meetings and you're a quorum risk, this board probably does not want to reappoint you. So I think there's some, of the reappointment process, some kind of a check with the chair that, yes, this person is a active participant in the committee. Secondly was, you know, do we want to encourage boards or committees to have alternate members? Because town building committee, you know, we have space for 1 or 2 alternates. The idea is that if you're interested and we're full, we know that maybe a drought someday, we want to have a bench, and so we have, I mean, I was an alternate before I became a member. In fact, almost everyone on that board now, apart from the original members like Tom and Nancy, were once alternates and now are full members. So it might be worth exploring a way to get more people involved in town, get them a learning curve onto the committee by being an alternate, and then finding a full member as openings persist. And then finally, let's encourage applicants somehow to give us more information on the form, because we get a lot of forms. I'm interested, I'm available
Right.
evenings, and things like town building committee, you know, ideally you're an engineer, an architect, a cost analyst. I mean, some skill set that is important to that committee. Other ones less, you know, less critical to have, you know, skills. But if we had a brief resume, or what's your compelling reason of why you want to be on this
Yeah, a
committee?
question, you know, what are your, you know, what do you believe you bring to this committee, or what are your
Yeah.
qualifications, you know, something that,
When I joined Affordable Housing, I had a passion for group home because of my daughter, right? So if we know that, that's sort of indicated to the committee, to us and to the, you know, committee, that this person is perhaps, you know, if there's multiple people applying, you know, we get more information, the better.
I think that goes also to Jeff's point of educating the public of what these boards and committees do, so they can be educated when they're putting in their information and provide us what their passion is related to that board or committee.
One thing that sometimes gives me concern is if, like a well-meaning new participant, excited new participant in town government, fills out the form and might be very qualified, but doesn't fill out very far, and then doesn't show up when we're actually talking about it. I find that people who show up, you know, statistically have a much better average of getting appointed. We can ask some questions, they came to the meeting. If everyone knows that that's the deal, then that's probably fair, but I worry that some people may not understand that they have this substantial advantage if they show up.
Right.
Or they may not know when the meeting is, they may not know what the procedure is after they fill out the form. So I think there's some gems that may have applied and then gotten turned off because they didn't really know they're supposed to show up, or they never heard about it, or they never heard anything. So
but I
I'm worried
think that
about
can go into sort of monitoring it, the whole process, and
The administrative
following
process.
it, so that people, you know, when they get an application, and then we're gonna hear that appointment, all of the folks who have applied for that can be notified, you know,
Yeah.
the select board will be hearing this, you know, you are encouraged to come, or something like that.
Strongly encouraged.
Yep. And if you can't send a cover.
Strongly encouraged.
Right.
You can't send a letter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least come online. I mean, if you're not here, at least have a face we can
Right.
say hi to. Okay, anything else from this board? Anybody online with comments?
I don't see any comments online, so I think Jeff and I will continue to work on some of these questions. I think we got feedback. I think we can pull some policies from other select boards and perhaps start drafting a policy for you all to consider in the near future. But in the meantime, Pam McNiff gets all of the citizen activity forms. She is now replying to all of those people. We have a better interim communication process in line, and I think we can take some of your comments tonight and put those into play right away rather than waiting for a policy.
Great, thanks. And with that, I think just done for the night. The next item of business is to open the 2024 special town meeting warrant to be held beginning Monday, October 21st, 2024 at 7 p.m. And we invited Angela. I think she's
Online. I just promoted her to panelist.
so. We have a request to open. Is there a motion to open the?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Angela, anything you want to add?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So it is open. So to Just Point, if you want to go review the special, the firearms bylaw, it's now open warrant, so.
So, Madam Moderator, do we have your permission to add that info to your section of the website?
Yes, please do, that would be helpful.
All right, thank you. And our moderator loves brevity. We love that.
And I also just want to note for members of the public who might be listening, we are planning the special town meeting on Monday, October 21st. The town meeting timeline will go up on that special town meeting webpage. If we do go a second night, it will be Monday, October 28th. The Harry Potter play is going on at WA that entire week as well, so we are coordinating deeply. So it would not be a Monday, Tuesday, or a Monday, Wednesday. It will be a Monday and a Monday if we have to go 2 nights, and we're already planning for 4 rooms at WA so we can fit as many people as possible. But as we get closer, we'll talk more town meeting logistics. I just wanted to get that out there in the air right now.
Thanks. Request to approve 2024 annual reappointments to committees and board members as listed in our packet.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've already done the minutes for approval, which takes us to board reports or updates. Do you have any?
Yeah, I'll give a quick update. Park and Rec was presented with rate increases for the after-school program for the next year. And they did support a rate increase of essentially $1 a block, which would be equivalent to $15 for the day if you were there for the entire afternoon session. There was also an adjustment to how we charge for early release days. The estimated net effect of this is somewhere north of 60,000 in increased revenue if the numbers hold. So just want to make sure that the public's aware that that's going to be coming out at some point in the future.
Anything else? Okay, so under correspondence, before I actually asked for a waiver, 2 things. One is somehow I got elected to the MBTA advisory
Yeah, I
board.
was gonna ask you how that happened.
And so, no,
Congratulations.
it's because you elected me to be chair, which kind of puts me on that board ex officio, which means you show up and get no vote. And so I asked Kristen, what that means. I've never seen this before. Apparently, it's I guess kind of always been there, because we didn't know it. And I have the option to request an alternative designee, and since I don't really have a desire to go through correspondence and respond to it, which may not involve, because we're MBTA adjacent, it's mostly transportation issues. So I would suggest that we delegate that task to the town manager's office, whoever she deems appropriate.
Well, yes.
So we can do it tonight, right? We have a
Yep.
agenda item for that?
Yeah, I'll reread the letter and we'll figure out what we need to do officially
So,
with them.
all in favor of transferring the appointment to the town manager's office?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then finally, just also briefly, if you read the correspondence, there's a thank you note from the Westford Education Foundation. It's a thank you for, they're putting out a game called Westfordopoly, which is, of course, a takeoff on Monopoly. It's got various restaurants, other businesses in town that are sponsoring squares. they want to have the town common, the bandstand actually as a community chest item. The town can't endorse, private enterprise, so thanks to the Jimison family, the Schiavone family, and Stewart Jamasiero, who sponsored the town's common in that game for us. So a plug for the Westford Education Foundation in the game, and also appreciation to those who've put the town up there on the game board. So with that, is there a motion to waive reading of other correspondence?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Westford.
Good night,
Have a
Westford.
good
Stay
night.
safe.